Aloha everyone, young and old, and thank you for watching our program today. Sparky Would Go, a Kauai talk show for the whole family. United States Senator Spark Matsunaga was born on October 8, 1916, and raised on Kauai, Hawaii. Born Masayuki Matsunaga, the beloved Sparky nickname was given to him by his elementary school friends. Sparky liked the name so much, though, that he legally added it to his birth name after World War II. If we emphasize the life and works of our greatest contributors, people will come to realize that moral courage is bravery of the highest type, and America will be called the champion of peace. Sparky was a political visionary who dedicated his life to peace and a united world. This program series honors those people and organizations who are living examples of how to persevere through the hard times, showing us that our lives are worth living. All right. Hey, aloha everybody. My name is Mark Jeffers, and today we are going to do a very exciting oral history interview with our friend, Bobbie McCord Waterhouse. Is that how I say your name, Bobbie?
Barbara May Waterhouse McCord.
Barbara May Waterhouse McCord.
Unless you're upset with me, then you call me Bobbie. No, actually, it's Bobbie. If you're mad at me, call me Barbara.
Oh, okay. I get it. Okay. I don't think I'm going to get mad at you. If I do, I'll probably just get up and walk because I don't express my anger
I know.
All right.
I'm just being silly.
Well, we're so fortunate to have Bobbie with us today because she not only is a very revered kupuna here on our island, someone who was born and raised here on Kauai, but her family is also born and raised here on Kauai. So we're talking about ancestors for Bobbie that we'd like to bring up and talk about today. The interview, though, is going to start and focus on your world, Bobbie, as a person growing up on Kauai and the fun and the excitement and the adventure of your life. So we're not a game show, we're an oral history interview. So let's start. Tell us where you're from and how did your family get to where you started out?
Well, my family started out in Boston. They came here as medical missionaries in 1842, Dr. and Mrs. Smith, and they landed on Kauai, and he was the only doctor for 40 years. They had 9 children, and one of those 9 children married my great-grandfather Waterhouse. And the Waterhouses came from England, the Reverend John Thomas Waterhouse, and he and his wife and his family of 9 children went to Tasmania. He was the only, he was head of all the islands there.
Which was part of New Zealand at the time.
Part of New Zealand, Australia, Tonga, all those islands. And he was sent from the Methodist Church in London out there.
So he was a missionary?
No, he was sent as a, oh, that's what I don't remember.
Oh, he was sent as a kind of a part of the protocol for the, oh, you're looking
He's all right here.
Now, the nice thing about working with Bobbie is that her family is so well documented.
This is all, yeah.
And so she's looking to see how her Waterhouse family was connected to working in the Pacific. Okay. And more than just Tasmania, right? Also New Zealand and other islands?
Oh, yes. He was sent out, and I'll remember it in a minute. Mm-hmm. He was sent out
as an ambassador?
The first superintendent of all the churches the Reverend John Waterhouse was sent out to those islands.
So as the missions were coming to the South Pacific, John Waterhouse was a person who was in charge through the church of making sure that those churches were successful.
Absolutely.
Right.
He landed on all the islands with his sons, too. There are so many stories about that.
Right, right.
And
let's come back to that, Bobbie. Now, the Waterhouse family married into the Smith family.
yes,
And the Smith family was here first. And then you are the great-granddaughter of that union.
yes.
And so where were you born?
Well, I was born right here on Kauai at WWII Hospital. My grandfather delivered us. So there were 3 generations of doctors. The Smiths, one of their sons was a doctor, and then my grandfather was the last. He was
3 generations of doctors on the Smith side of the family.
and Waterhouse.
The last one,
And Waterhouse.
the
yeah.
last one delivered you at WWII Hospital.
Right.
And where is WWII Hospital? Where was it?
Well, in WWII, above Hanapepe, where the school is now.
Ah,
Yeah.
so where the school is, that was
now.
also the infirmary or the hospital area.
Yes.
I
And
see.
he was a plantation doctor, lived in Koloa, and after he retired, he added on a hospital to his house, which is now the missionary church.
Ah.
They tore it down a few years ago. That was a sad day.
So were all the Smith Waterhouse doctors, the 3 generations of doctors, were they all like the first Dr. Smith, where they had to be the doctor for the whole island? Or did they
Yes.
find the other doctors would come? And
For the whole island.
wow,
For the
that's
whole
so
island.
amazing. Kauai has so much that it owes
Yeah.
to your family for taking care of people. They saw so many things through their eyes, right? The condition of the native people and the early immigrants to the islands, and all the different maladies and things. That
So
came up,
many
right?
stories about
Right.
them. Oh my goodness.
Are they going to make a movie about your family?
No, but there are so many stories.
All right. Go back to your hospital. Go back to being born in WWII. Now, where did your family live at that time?
Well, Daddy went to school here, born and raised here. His father brought him into the world. And he went to Montezuma School for Boys during high school years. Then he went to SC and came back and worked on the plantation in Koloa. And then he asked his second cousin, Lindsay Faya of Kekaha Sugar Company, if he could have a job on the plantation. And Lindsay said, "Of course, Bill. Sure, come work for us." So
are you
that's
saying
where
that
we
each
landed,
plantation
in
has
Kekaha.
its own doctor, its own medical staff? Of some
Well, not really. Yeah, not really. But there weren't many doctors
Sure.
on Kauai.
Right. And
Yeah.
they took care of the community as well as the people on the plantation, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So your family moved to Mana. I saw a beautiful picture of the manager's house in Mana. Is that where you grew up there?
That's where we grew up. Well, we started out in Kekaha,
Right,
and then Daddy was moved to Mana
right.
as a
So the plantation,
overseer.
in Mana, Kekaha Sugar, was how old at that time? Had been established as a regular plantation and was a strong company at that time. Right?
Oh my gosh, and there are so many books written about that too. If you're really interested in how it all began.
Right. So your
Much
family
to
was
read.
how big?
Well, my dad had 6 girls. All he wanted was a boy.
Yeah.
So he trained us all as boys and growing up. We rode horses and we dove off of high towers in the reservoirs. He thought we could do gainers, gainers. And he
Yeah,
said,
I've
you
heard
can
about
do it, you
gainers,
can
yeah.
do it. We cried a lot.
Yeah.
But he always paid us for it. If we did it,
Wow.
we got money.
So you grew up with 5 sisters.
Yes.
And you were the youngest, the oldest?
The oldest.
The oldest.
Yeah.
And so did that put you in the position of having to care for and instruct your younger sisters?
No, not at all. My younger sister was, brilliant. Went to Stanford from Waimea High School.
Wow, that is big.
She got in, yeah.
Would you mind, just for our sake, naming your sisters?
Well, Barbara May, Helen Sue, Leona Adele, Patricia and Priscilla, and Neva Ramona. Waterhouse, all Waterhouse girls. Yeah.
I feel like giving you an ovation. That's quite a list.
Well, the house we moved to, Mana,
Yeah.
was 100 years old when we
Already?
first moved there.
Wow.
And then they renovated it just before Pearl Harbor. So,
Now, you were born in the early 1930s.
1931,
1931.
that makes me old.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
that
my
makes you
goodness.
old.
I'm
But
old.
You could say there's other words for old. But 1930s now, that was the time in the United States when we were just either coming out of or still in the middle of the Great Depression, right?
Yes.
Now, did that affect Hawaii? Were you being affected by that?
The war affected.
The war, that's the big time. And you were 10 years old already.
9, yeah.
9. So, but growing up and up until the war, did you have what would you call a rough and ready, fun, adventuresome childhood?
Oh.
Did you guys, you were telling me about Kauai. Did you go up to Kauai when you
Oh
were
my
younger?
gosh, when Daddy bought the house early on, early 30s, we spent a lot of time up there. And the guy that built it was a teacher at Waimea High School, and he was going to retire up there. So he built this beautiful cabin, knotty pine wood, a great big huge lava stone fireplace, and we did paint the outside Kauai green, as it was known in those days.
Forest
Everybody
green,
had
yeah. I know that
Kauai
color.
green.
Yeah.
And anyway, he was on the roof, and he fell off the roof, and that was the end for him because he couldn't drive up and down anymore. So he sold it to my dad, and that was like in 1933.
I see.
Yeah. And we've had it all these years.
Wow. That's
all
so great.
these years, a long time.
Yeah, no, families that have those cabins really have cared for them that long.
Oh, yeah.
Many, many stories. And so you know the mountains fairly well then. Did you ride horseback in the mountains?
Oh, yeah. We rode our horses from Mana all the way up there.
Oh, my gosh.
Our okoles were
How
really sore by the time
How long
6
did it
o'clock
take you?
came. Well,
long
from
did it take you?
5 in the morning till about 6 at night.
Wow.
Yeah.
So was there a gravel road at that time or just a horseback?
Well, I remember a gravel road
Yeah.
since the time I was born.
Right.
Yeah, and we had stables up there, and we had connected onto the house.
Was the Camp Sloggett there at that time?
Oh, way before us, yes.
Yeah. And so, and were you able to go up to Kalalau Lookout and Pukila?
Yes.
Yeah.
No tourists in those days. We had the whole place to ourselves.
And were there ditchmen living in the ditchmen's houses along Camp 10 Road there?
Oh, just one ditchman, Fayas. Oh my gosh. Oh, there's a long story about that. But I would have to look that part of my life up.
And was your family hunters, or did you make lay, or did you love the woods that were up
Oh, Daddy had workmen come up from the plantation, and they slept on our porch, and then they'd go pig hunting
there?
the next day, and they'd bring pigs home and put them up, by a rope, they'd hang upside down as they bled the pigs.
Right.
It made it
Right.
better
You
for
have
the
to be
pigs.
very careful when you're butchering a pig, yeah.
And, well, it was to let the blood out. It made them better to eat. I don't know, but I just remember those pigs hanging up from, yes, and they brought all the dogs too.
What was your favorite flower or favorite fruit in Kauai? Do you remember?
Oh, plums.
Plums, yeah.
And nasturtiums.
Yes.
We had bouquets all over the house.
Yeah, and calla lily?
Nasturtiums, calla lilies.
Yeah.
Oh, all kinds of. My mother had beautiful gardens up there.
Right.
In the back of the house, roses.
Yeah, flower gardens. Everybody brought their favorite flowers, right?
Oh,
to Kauai.
yes. And the fun time being with each other for dinner and whatnot.
Right.
A lot of Oahu people bought houses up there.
Yes.
And their kids, so we got to know their kids when they'd come up for the summers.
All right, I'm going to turn the corner now. What about the beach? If you live in Keikaha, in Mana, you had access to one of the most beautiful beaches in the world, right?
Well, a lot of our summer was spent in Koloa with my grandparents and my aunt and uncles, and we just lived there all summer.
Were you a surfer, Bobbie?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. There's a picture of me with my 8-foot board. But I didn't surf until many years later.
Right.
But we did not board surf. You hardly saw any boards. In fact, you never saw any boards.
So you were body surfing?
Body surfing.
Right.
And Breneke's Beach was the hangout for all the kids that came during the summer. And most of my cousins brought house guests. So there was about 75 kids on this island.
You could start your own school probably there. And were there adventures that you would all go on? Would you go to Mahaulepu? Would you go to explore areas there? And another question, did you ever get scoldings for some of your adventures?
Well, Dr. Breneke's house was right there at Breneke's Beach, and we used to go sit on his porch and use his water, turn on his water, and we would get scolded for being there. He was never there, but that's where we picnicked a lot.
I see.
Because that was the hangout, was Breneke's Beach.
Now, Breneke is also famous in Kauai. Didn't he bring one of his cabins up?
No, but he built a house right next to where my dad bought his first little house.
Oh, I see.
It had a living room and a kitchen and then an outhouse. But they were always going to add on to it, except, thank God, because we were on a high cliff. Oh my gosh.
I remember that the location of that Breneke's house, and they moved it up to, it became the Waineke cabin. It's part of the Waineke camp, I believe.
Well, we were right next to it. In fact, when you went in the driveway, you saw our little house with the outhouse, and then you drove here, and there was Breneke's.
So you were very close with the people that you grew up with. Who were some of your playmates, Bobbie?
My
Who were
cousins.
your favorite playmates? I mean,
My
of course, your sisters.
cousins.
Right? Your cousins.
Oh, more so than my sisters.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
they had each other.
Tell me something you played with. What did you play
My
with?
dollhouse. My dad built me a 3-room playhouse with running water in the kitchen. And oh, I love that place. A playhouse
with running water?
In the kitchen, yeah. I had a real kitchen, living room.
Wow.
And a bedroom.
Yeah.
Originally, it was a doghouse when we lived in Keikaha. And then when we moved to Mana, he moved the doghouse and then added on 3 more rooms.
To become a playhouse.
Playhouse for me.
So you could actually go in the playhouse
yes.
and play, and your cousins could come in there, and
yes.
it was a place of privacy. And
yes.
So did you have dolls? Did you have dress-up clothes?
Oh, I wish there was no place on Kauai to buy anything. We went to Cress's once a year to buy our paper dolls and our hair ribbons. Now, that was a big treat once a year. Big treat.
Yeah.
People made our clothes.
Yeah,
We
sure.
couldn't even buy clothes. All our clothes were handmade.
And did
Dressmakers.
you have a favorite toy that you like to play with? You know, when I talked to some of the old timers here in Hanapepe, they talked about strapping cans on their feet and clunking down the street. They talk about marbles, and they talked about, of course, baseball. That was the big thing for them, you know, back in the days, right?
Yes.
Did you play some of those things?
Oh, absolutely. But our summers, we looked forward to our summers because the rest of the time we were in school the whole time.
What did you like to learn in school? What was your favorite thing to learn?
Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah,
Art,
nothing. Yeah.
art.
So
Draw. I love to draw.
Oh, really?
I drew all the time.
And was there an art teacher in your school?
No, we didn't. No.
Oh, this is Eli school.
No, we went to Mana School.
Mana
School.
There was a school, an elementary school in Mana. Now, I didn't even know that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, all during the war years.
Was it like a one-room schoolhouse with one teacher and one class? Or was it several teachers and several classes?
2 teachers, and one taught 1st, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and the other, one taught 5th and 6th, and the other the principal taught 7th and 8th.
Wow.
Mr. Tsuchiya was our teacher.
Oh,
yeah,
I wonder if they're related.
And he ended up at Waimea being the principal of Waimea High School.
Wow.
And that's when,
Did you have any Ni'ihau children there?
No, all Mana camp kids.
Right. So, okay, so now you're growing up, you're having a great time as a young girl with a big family. And what about your mother and father? Were they, your father was a doctor?
No.
Your father worked at the plantation?
No. His father was the doctor.
Right, I'm sorry.
And, after he got the job with his cousin,
right.
He was, a division overseer for the Keikaha Sugar Company.
Wow, so he was administrator.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. And he was sent to Mana, and he ran all of Mana.
So operations, running the operations.
Oh, yes.
So long days, and he would come home after a long day, and then would he play with you girls, or would he just go in and read the paper?
He said, have you had your bath yet? And if we didn't have our bath by 4 o'clock, we got lit into. And bath water was outside. We stoked the fire, and it made hot water.
Like in a hot water collar?
Yes,
I
yeah.
see.
So, I remember those days.
Yeah, and then your mother, she was a homemaker?
She taught school for 35 years, Keikaha, Mana, until it closed. Then she went to Keikaha, and then she taught at Waimea. She taught 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grades, and 6 girls, and also raised a husband.
So, besides that being very miraculous, what kind of chores did you girls have?
Oh my gosh, we didn't really have chores. We had wonderful friends that cleaned our house, like Yoshiko did all the laundry.
Okay.
And, so many wonderful people.
So people were, domestic people were preparing your meals and your laundry and stuff like that.
Oh, yes.
So,
yes.
But you had things that you had to maintain, you had to take care of certain things. What
we
about
had to clean
animals?
our rooms, and
What
we had
about
to
animals?
study. Oh, animals came after we came back from the war.
Ah, I see. I think we're going right into the war days. Tell me what happened. How did you learn about the war, Bobbie? And how did your family react to the war?
Oh, my gosh. Pearl Harbor, December 7th. We had no idea what was going on, but something big was happening in our skies and radios, and it was awful. But
just cacophony, stuff over the radio, planes in the sky.
everything.
People talking, right? There was the buzz, buzz, right?
There was. So, Daddy got us tickets to go on the Aquitania, get us off the island and go to San Francisco. So we had to be ready within 24 hours to get on the ship. So he sent Mother, expecting her 6th child, to Oahu, and we stayed with friends, and we had to be ready within 24 hours to get on the ship.
So there was a plan that you had
Yes,
that said that you felt as though if the Japanese were on their way, then you didn't want to be part of what was going to happen
The
here.
men stayed home. The women had to go.
Oh, I
So
see.
all of us kids went, and grandmas and grandpas, and oh yeah, we just all left.
So you all picked it up, except for the men, and you moved to San Francisco.
Well, we landed in San Francisco.
Landed in San Francisco.
We were with a convoy because we were
Safety.
afraid they were going to
Submarines and stuff.
yeah. And we landed in San Francisco, and we stayed with an aunt. My mother had an aunt and uncle there that lived on Market and Twin Peaks. We stayed there for about a month. Then we went to Los Angeles, and Mother found a little house there.
Now this is you and your sisters
And my
and
mother,
your mother.
5 kids, expecting her 6th, she rented a little house. It had a Murphy bed in the living room, and it was 1 bedroom, and that's where we stayed until relatives in Pasadena said, "Oh no, Genevieve, you've got to come to Pasadena," which we did. We went to Pasadena.
And that's where your mother had her child.
Yes, we lived on North Menor Avenue. And my grandmother was there. She came on the ship with us, of course, Nana, and she helped take care of us. And her sister lived right down the street, Bessie Scoville, and she helped take care of all of us.
Were you in school in Pasadena?
Well, what they did was they sent me to a girls' school in Glendora, the Brown School for Girls. And that's where I went and loved it.
Oh, you loved it. What did you love about it? What did you love
Miss
about
White
it?
taught me piano lessons.
Piano.
Yes, and we had, I just love that school. We had uniforms, and I got on the baseball team all year round.
Yeah.
That's when I was
And probably
so
had
proud.
art classes.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
That's great. That means that you spent your war days sort of like safe and with family. And then how old were you at that time?
About 11. We were only there for 2 years. Then we came home.
I see.
And when we came home, Daddy had all these animals for us to take care of.
What kind of animals?
Okay. I had 8 pens of females, and I had 2 pens of males, and then we had 1 huge pen where all the babies were kept.
Now, what kind of creature is this you're talking about?
Rabbits.
Wabbits.
Wabbits. And I had to feed them. So I grew alfalfa. This is all through our high school years.
Yeah.
I fed them. My sister had the chickens. She had pens of chickens where she had to feed the chickens mash, get the eggs to see there were no red spots, sand them, and then bring the eggs in the house. And
I was going to ask you, were you able to use the chickens for their products? What about the rabbits? Did you slaughter them and eat them?
Oh my goodness, I never knew that. But we had rabbit every Friday for dinner. I never knew that.
You never knew it?
I never knew.
You never asked?
I didn't know to ask. I had no idea they were going to. We had rabbit
I'm sorry, I'm
for
laughing.
dinner.
This is not a funny
I know. No, I really never realized that. We moved back to Mana, and we were only there 2 years, and there was, 2.5 more years, 3 years more of the war.
Of the war. So you lived in Mana during the war days, but there wasn't as much fear as Japanese invasion, or?
No, we still had our lights out at night.
Uh-huh.
And our bomb shelters dug
Right.
to run to. But anyway, we had our high school years when we came back.
I see.
And you're right, the war was more towards Japan
the West,
rather than towards Hawaii. So it was more normal.
Right. Just a side note, were you aware of that incident that happened when the Japanese plane landed on Niihau?
Had no idea, but read about it a lot afterwards.
That was an exciting story, actually.
Oh, that was.
So, and question, did you know people from Niihau? Were you aware of Niihau people being a neighbor island?
Well, we grew up with the Robinson boys and girls. We grew up with Warren and Russell Robinson. They were part of the gang.
Right.
And the parties, I forgot to tell you about the parties we had.
Okay.
Hector and Sandy Moyer, who got married. Their father and mother, the Knutsons, built them their house, all in Koloa, all of lava rock.
Wow.
And yes, and they had one son, Iki. And Iki was part of the gang during our summer months staying in Koloa, part of the beach gang and everything. And there were a lot of kids that played ukuleles and guitars. And
when did you get together? When you went to church and Pau Church,
no,
or
no.
at the beach, or when did you get together?
Every day.
Every day?
Every day at the beach during the summer. Every day at the beach for like a month. Kokei 1 month, Koloa for like 2 months.
Oh,
yeah, every day. Some of us worked in the cannery. My cousins, my girl cousins and I worked in the cannery.
Now that would be the WWII cannery.
The WWII cannery.
And they grew pineapple somewhere in that neighborhood, somewhere. I'm not sure
all
exactly.
over the mountains.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we could hardly wait to get back to the beach to swim. And then we had so much fun.
Why did you choose to work in the cannery?
Well, we were trying to earn money.
Oh.
A lot of money, because my dad said, you're not going back to the mainland on the ship that all the college kids go back on, September 2nd, the Lurleen. You're not going with the college kids.
Why not?
It was a college party.
Oh, too much partying.
And he had 2 girls to worry about, you know.
Right.
And Sue and I said, oh, yes, we are. So we spent Saturdays all through our high school years working at the Garden Island for
the Garden Island newspaper.
For Charlie Fern.
Okay.
Oh boy.
He was a politician.
Every Saturday.
Yeah.
And Sue wrote a column for the paper. In fact, a lot of columns. But anyway, we paid our own way on that ship.
So you were going.
We were going to go
to
on
the mainland, and that was a school trip after high school.
This was going away to college.
Going away to college.
I went to a girls' school in New York, upstate New York.
Take it back to when you played with the Robinsons and the Knutsons, and you were telling
every summer.
You were telling me a story where you had a race. Tell us that story again, where you were racing the. I didn't really.
Oh, that was horse racing, the county fairs.
Horse racing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And you had a good horse and a good.
We had 2 good horses.
A good
Plantation
strider.
horses. Yeah.
And you were the winners always. You were the fastest.
Well,
you were the ones to beat.
The Knutson girls raced with us, and we'd beat them. Sue would come in first, I'd come in second, yeah. Betsy Knutson.
Yeah.
I've teased her about that many times, years later.
Yeah, what happened to your horse? Why was it so slow, you know?
The fancy boots and the clothes, and we look like ragamuffins next to them.
Yeah.
But we always beat them.
What was your secret? What was the secret in winning?
Daddy Che training us.
Oh, okay.
From Mana to Kekaha, racing us in his car, and we would race, yeah. But I have to tell you about Sandy and Hector Moyer's son.
Okay.
Sandy and Hector gave a party every summer for all of us kids that were on Kauai, the gang at the Brennecke's Beach.
Ah.
And she would say, okay, you can come. And it was, I've got pictures of it, and I'm going to show them to you.
Mm-hmm.
There were like 75 of us kids. Most of them were my cousins, and they brought house guests.
Sure.
They always had house guests
Sure.
that they'd bring from the mainland.
Well, what would you do with
Oahu.
75 children? I mean, gosh,
Well,
that's a whole school.
One party. Well, Brennecke's Beach held them all, too.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, you have to wear shoes. Number one, no barefoot, and you have to dress up.
Wow.
So we planned a year ahead of time, what are we going to wear to Sandy and Hector party? Oh, that was the
okay.
big thing, 4 years of high school.
And what did you do at the party that made it so fun?
You'll see pictures of it. We all sat on the ground, luau style. Yep.
Good
it was
food.
Oh,
and did you have games that you played?
Oh, yes. And oh, yes. And Sandy and Hector were always there with all of us kids mingling around. And they were, we just dearly loved them.
What a great memory.
And Hector, of course, we sang a lot. All of us played instruments. We sang a lot.
Were you singing Hawaiian music?
Oh, mostly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, mostly.
A favorite tune?
Yes.
What is your favorite tune?
Oh my gosh, and I always ask somebody to play it when we go away, but they don't remember them. When you go out for dinners,
Yeah.
like at Keoki's.
Right. Which could you play going
Yeah.
to Hukilau or something like that?
No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you think about Hawaii.
Real Hawaiian songs.
Yeah, you think about Hawaii in the 1920s and 30s, and it was very, very, music and
Mahi
was very-
beamers.
yeah, there were very lots of stuff going on with the cultural
was.
renaissance, right?
It was.
Hollywood even, right? Mm-hmm. All right, so now, so take us back to high school. You graduated from high school when?
1950.
1950, 50.
And Sue and I paid our own ways on the Matson ship.
Right, and you were
We
going
got to San
college.
Francisco.
San Francisco.
Yeah, stayed.
This was a big adventure now, because you were on your own.
Yeah, that's right. Relatives met us in San Francisco. And then Sue went on to Stanford, and I went on to New York, where relatives met me. Daddy made
How'd you
sure
get to New York?
relatives
Was that a
met
train?
me.
That was a train you were on?
No, I think I flew.
Flew, wow. That was
I'm pretty sure. I can't remember. That was 100 years ago, you know.
Yeah, I heard
That was a
about
long
that,
time
yeah.
ago, yeah.
So you
But
got to New
anyway.
York. What part of New York?
Briarcliff is in Westchester County.
Is it by the lakes or up by
No, it's
Albany?
It's on the Hudson River.
Oh, okay, so it's on the other side.
It's on the
of
other
state.
side.
I see.
Yeah.
And the college that you went to was?
Briarcliff, Edgewood Park in Briarcliff.
What made you choose that college?
Well, my cousin went there first from Punahou.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah.
And you were looking forward to studying and meeting gentlemen?
No, I had no idea I was going to meet anybody. I mean, this is a girls' school.
Yeah.
But Paul Townsley from Kauai Electric, his father was Kauai Electric. He went to a school, a Maritime Academy on Long Island.
Wow.
That was a boys' school. He got me dates at his school. I got him dates at my school. So we had a wonderful time. Yeah.
So this
We
is
did.
a prelude to
Yeah.
online dating, right?
That's right.
That's pretty radical.
That's right.
That's beautiful. That's
Yeah,
great.
Paul
And
Townsley.
so you
His
were there.
son went there too from Kauai. They all grew up on Kauai.
So you were there for 2, 3, 4 years?
Two.
2 years.
Two.
And you graduated from there?
Yep, I did in merchandising.
Merchandising. You were going to, what was your vision there? You were going to become a,
Merchandiser. I was going to have a store and sell
Like a
things
buyer for a
like my
store.
great-great-grandfather had in Honolulu. From Tasmania. He came for his health. and sailed to Hawaii with his family, and his ninth child, or fifth child, was born on the way to Hawaii, was conceived, born in Hawaii. That's my great-great-grandfather.
And what merchandise store were they involved in?
John Thomas Waterhouse had a big merchandise store on Oahu.
Okay.
The only one, in fact.
Wow, back in those days, too. It was very well thought of.
Very well thought. In fact, Kukielona Park has one of his deers that he brought. He used to sail to London, England a lot, bring back stuff
I remember
ships.
that deer. I know that deer.
Yeah,
in Kukui'ula.
and there's a plaque underneath that says, anyway.
Yeah, donated to Kukui'ula.
And we had lions in our house. In fact, my dad took one of the lions to Mana when he made a park out of it.
A park in
He had
Mana?
he had a park. He had tennis courts. He had a band. The Filipino guys had a band, and they'd play on weekends.
Did they have a name for this band?
Yeah, but I don't remember it, but they were good. My dad, and then built a swimming pool for the Mana. I think that's all that's left of the swimming pool in Mana.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow.
But he did a lot for that community.
No, what you're
and
talking
he
about is
also
amazing.
said, okay, you guys, I'm giving you a prize at the end of the year. You plant flowers, plant whatever you want around your houses, and we'll give you a big prize, which that was a big thing for the community.
Sure.
Competition, yeah.
Oh, sure. And plus, every culture has their favorite flowers.
That's right.
Right?
That's
Gonna
right.
bring you. That's what happened in Kauai. Everybody bought their favorite flowers, and some of them turned into weeds, and some of them turned into classical Kauai flowers like calla.
Nasturtiums were wild all over Kauai.
We have some beautiful footage of Mr. Boynton drinking the water drop on the nasturtium.
Oh.
It's funny. It's really nice.
We had flowers all over the house.
Yeah.
Oh.
Let's take a turn here. Let's
Okay.
go to Kenneth. Where did you meet your first husband, and how did that turn and blossom into your family?
Well, one of the my friends at school was from Hawaii, went to Punahou, and she went to West Point, and there was a guy up there that she wanted me to meet. So I went up there as a blind date.
West Point from New York is...
Poughkeepsie. It's right up the Hudson River.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
It's really close. It's not too far from our school on the Hudson River.
Right.
Yeah. So I met him, and we fell madly in love the first time.
Wow.
And a year later, I met him in September. He gave me a ring in December, and then we were married the next June.
1951.
1952.
52. So you were 20 years old? 19?
Yeah, 20. Yeah.
Wow, that's romantic. You fell in love right away.
Oh,
you
yes.
knew right away.
Oh, yes, I
Oh
knew
my
right away.
gosh. Okay. And he was, where was he in school at that time? Was he finished or
He was a senior.
senior?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it worked out.
So you were both
really
young and in love, and what did you decide to do?
Well, I knew I was going to be a military wife for the rest of my life.
That's right.
And I agreed upon it. But later on, he realized that we needed to move back to Hawaii and become normal. We moved 16 times in 11 years.
Holy smokes.
I mean, yes, 16 times in 11
Where were some of the places you moved?
Fort Campbell, Kentucky, Fort Benning, Georgia.
You should have picked up the accent too, right?
Yeah. We moved to Japan. We built a house in Japan,
Oh my
in
God.
Kumamoto, because we were too low on the totem pole so to have housing
I
at
see.
Camp Wood. So we built a house there with another classmate, the Malones. That was a fun project.
Wow.
And for I mean, they were so poor there. This is right after the war. And so houses where you could give them a month's rent and they would build a
Wow.
big house for you.
What a world.
So we lived there for about a year, and then we were able to move on the base. And in fact, we closed the base. We
What
were
was
the
the
last
name of
ones
that
to
base?
close. Camp Wood in
Camp Wood.
Kumamoto.
Kumamoto.
And the Yakata dolls are famous there in Kumamoto.
Do you have one?
Oh, I had many. Yes.
And from there, were you making children at this time? Did you have children with you?
I had one that went there. She was a year old when we landed there, and we had her first birthday there. Okay, the last one was born in Pasadena. The Huntington Memorial, Lori was born in Pasadena. The Huntington Memorial, where my dad's sister was born.
Oh my gosh.
My grandfather brought in my father, but when it came time to have the second child, my grandmother says, "Oh, Herbert, I'm going back to Pasadena to have this child." And that child was born in the same hospital that Lori was born in.
Oh gosh.
And she never forgave her mother for having been born in Pasadena instead of Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
Of course, the last child was born on Kauai. That was mine. There were 3 kids.
And where did you live when you were living here back on Kauai?
Oh, okay. Yes, we had a tour here.
Oh, great.
We had a tour here.
On Oahu.
On Oahu. He was head of ROTC at the University of Hawaii, along with other classmates and people. There was a lot of us there, and it was a wonderful group of people. Well, we bought a house because there was no housing for us. So we bought a house out in Eva Beach.
In Eva Beach.
When it first started, there was nothing out there except Eva Beach Plantation, and we had a lot of friends at that
sugar
plantation.
cane, right?
Yeah, sugar cane. So we bought our first little house there.
Great.
For $25,000.
And then that was close by the beach there, where those older houses
Eva
are?
Beach. Well, it was the first. There was nothing out there.
Right.
Yeah, it was the first.
Barber's Point, and then Eva
Right.
Beach.
Right. And Barber's Point is where we were connected to. A lot of that. We did our surfing out there. Our commissary was there.
Sure.
Everything was there.
That's where, yeah. My mother was actually stationed there at Barber's Point during the war days. Yeah,
Oh,
she was in the Navy.
Oh my God.
Tell me this, this is an amazing story in itself, is how did your husband choose to go and serve in Vietnam?
Well, we'd been there 4 years, and
In
he
Eva
felt
Beach.
this is not fair. This is not right. And our president at the time said, "It's not what you can do for your country. No, it's not what your country can do for you. It's what you can do for the country." And he thought about that. He's written me about that. I've got all these letters. And he said, "It's really time for me to go and do something. You know, I've been here."
So he saw
4
his
years.
life in the military as being truly, sincerely a military person.
A West
not,
Pointer.
Yeah,
You
not
bet.
just to
Yep.
teach in ROTC or
yeah.
to be stationed here or
And that
there,
was wonderful.
but to be in a military situation.
He said it was time for me to go.
How did you feel about that?
You're going to go again? He went to Korea for 6 months, and you know, and a lot of his work was bivouacking. Never saw him, you know.
Right.
And so, well, I was upset at first because I thought, oh my gosh, how long, you know. But when he told me, it's really, this is very important right now. They need us. The people need us, and I've got to go. And
It sounds like a very dedicated person.
he was. He was. In fact, they gave him an award and named a building after him because he redid the whole system at the University of Hawaii.
Wow.
And then during the summer months, he'd take his team to Washington, and there's a place there where they all practiced and whatnot. It was very important anyway. But we had wonderful times with all the people that we knew. Some of them were classmates.
Mm-hmm.
So we had wonderful times together. And of course, I cut everything out of the newspapers. My scrapbooks are full of things we did.
And like I'd say, that's how movie scripts get written, is somebody has great collections of scrapbooks. Now, Kenneth passed away in Vietnam.
Yes.
And that must have been a real shock to you.
Oh, my gosh. Well, the papers were full of it. And I got a lot of awards. And there were a number of generals there at that time on their way to Vietnam.
Yeah, because early 60s.
And that's all
right?
in print and whatnot, yeah. But I was just totally out of it. Totally out of it.
Yeah, what could you do? I mean, it's just something that happened, and it was his choice, and you came through it with your family and survived. And you were living on Oahu still in Ewa Beach at that time.
Right, yes, yeah.
And at some point, you decided to come back to Kauai?
No, I sold the house and moved to where his folks lived in San Marino.
Okay.
His folks were so broken up, I mean, you know. And I moved there, and he grew up, everybody he grew up with lived in San Marino. And most of the kids left and went down to the beach, to Newport Beach, and live. And his friends introduced me to my second husband.
Oh,
his best friends.
So
yes.
there it goes.
That's how I met my second husband.
And so there was something magical about that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And yes, I was married for 14 years the second time. 11 the first time, 14 the second time.
And he was a good father to your children?
Oh, wonderful. He was a teacher at Horace Ensign School in Newport, Port Beach. It's the only 7th and 8th grade school in the area. So everybody went through Horace Ensign. Everybody knew
Tell us his
Mr.
name.
Stillwell.
Mr. Stillwell.
He grew up in the Salvation Army with 6 kids, boys, most of them. They were so poor. You know, Salvation Army, they were dedicated to, they're beautiful Christians.
Right.
Dedicated.
Yes.
And half of his relatives were here on Oahu and Kauai. I mean,
they were... Salvation Army?
The Salvation Army,
oh my gosh.
In fact, his brother's wife ran the Salvation Army on Oahu. It was a restaurant. Oh, there's a long story about that. Yeah.
Well, Salvation Army people are on a mission from God, and
my gosh.
when they're on duty, on call, they really get things done. And so I can really admire that. So that you must have seen that in Mr. Stillwell,
in everything they did. Yeah.
Right.
His brother, one of the boys, led the Salvation Army band in the Rose Parade for 40 years. For 40 years.
What a claim to fame. In the Rose Parade.
All of his boys were football players, and everybody.
So were you swept away into the Salvation Army world as well?
No, we went to our own churches.
I see.
Where we lived.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you stayed in California until you were finished
well,
there? How did your...
What happened was he was to retire after 30 years of teaching at Horace Ensign. And we were lucky enough, the family was trying to get us back home. And we said, we're coming when we retired. And so
that was the plan. He wanted to bring the family back here to...
Us,
Your children were such a big part of your life.
Oh,
and tell me their names again.
Their names are Leona.
Leona.
She ended up as an American Airlines flight attendant for 37 years. She just retired and is so happy.
Travel benefits from that.
Yeah.
Right?
And then there's Chuck.
Chuck.
And Chuck, he lives in Virginia. He's with the FBI.
Oh.
And then there's Laurie.
Laurie.
Who lives on Kauai.
Leona, Chuck
and
Laurie.
My baby.
And Leona is a connection with Esther Williams. And
Yes.
Chuck is the FBI who lives on the East Coast. And does he come back and visit you?
Oh, all the time.
Oh,
Oh,
good.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Your guys' family has to be together
gosh,
totally
he
all the
comes
time,
back.
right?
Yeah. Connected to the movie that was filmed here with Esther Williams. Did you ever know about that film?
No, I don't. Tell me about that film.
Okay, a movie was filmed here. My sister and I tried to try out for it, but we didn't have enough suntan yet, so we were kicked
okay, I
out.
get it.
But we met Esther Williams and their son, which was just born, their first child that was just born. Anyway, to make a long story short, my oldest daughter went to UOP where she met Esther Williams' daughter. And both of them were anti-joining sororities.
Oh.
They became the best of friends, at which they are today, the best of friends. So needless to say, we got a lot of seeing Esther Williams. She swam in our pool. I've got pictures of her with Lori.
That's fascinating, yeah.
And it was. And
what was the name of the film she was recording here?
oh my gosh.
King
Pagan
Kong?
Love Song.
Oh, Pagan Love Song.
Pagan Love Song.
Pagan Love Song. Oh, yeah, I'd
Now,
heard about
is that
Yeah.
interesting? Yeah.
What a world. So you and your family had planned to come back here to Kauai when you retired.
Oh, that's right. I have to get back to that. Okay. So I was here. I had drawn my plans. I knew where I was going to build this wonderful house. And I was staying with my grandmother at the time, and Hanako answered the phone and said to me, "Bobbie, your husband died. He died in his sleep at home."
Wow.
And what happened was he didn't show up for school.
Oh, he
And this
still
was
teaching.
May Day, and he
yeah.
was to retire like in 2 weeks. So they went to our house, knocked on the door, and found him lying on the side of the bed.
Wow.
So they told me, and of course I went right home. And
What a sad,
it was
sad,
just horrible.
sad
It was
story.
just horrible.
Yeah, that's really sad.
11, 14 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, a year later, my first husband's, her dad's friends introduced me to Bill. Bill had lost his wife, and she went over to his house that lived across the street and said, "Can I invite my friend to have dinner with us?" And his kids said, "Yeah." And so went to dinner there, and that was a year later. We got married again.
I love how you bounced back. Talk about resilience. And
I cried a lot, though. I'll tell you.
No, I totally understand that. What an amazing story.
later,
But at
yeah.
the same time, you're open to life and
Of
changing
course.
and what's coming into your life.
They're
that's
up
so
there.
important.
They're up there looking down.
Yeah,
down
that's
on
so
us.
important too.
Anyway.
So with Bill, you finished your house.
41 years I've been married to Bill. 41 years.
And you built a house.
Yes, we built many houses.
Okay, many houses. There we go.
We lost a lot of them in the hurricane, so
Ah.
we built a lot of our houses here on Kauai.
And was that the fun thing that you were doing with your life at that time?
Well, yeah, because he was totally retired, and when my uncle said, "Hey, you got to come over here, you guys. We've lost everything in the hurricane." And we said, "Yeah, we're coming over here, but we're sailing in the Nationals first, and then we're going to Huntington Lake camping and fishing with our friends, and then we're going to be there. That'll be 2 weeks from now." And Uncle Bob says, "Oh, no, you're not. You got to come right now." So he was desperate. We lost everything here.
Which hurricane was that?
The first one. One of our little houses on the beach was 130 years old.
I had heard.
It came around the Horn, and it was in the water for months. So the wood had no termites. So
Sure.
that's the beach house we grew up in,
Right.
knowing about.
Right.
Yeah. And so anyway, we came over here, and Bill and I, from the ground up, built all those houses twice.
You must have felt like some kind of pioneer person, again, recapturing your life that you had lost, you had traveled away from and then come back to. You must have felt like sort of a pioneer spirit is what I'm trying to say.
We were so happy to be back here.
Yeah.
Both of us. Oh my gosh. I mean, it was heaven on earth. And the fact that he was retired.
Well, you can tell that you really love Kauai.
And I've got all the pictures from the very beginning, loading all the containers on the mainland and bringing them over here, because there was nothing left here.
Well, I love the picture that you've let us use for this interview, where you're sitting in front of your collection of albums and photo albums and all these things, and you're just going, oh my gosh, talk about a movie script. I think there's 5 movie scripts in this. Bobbie, let's turn a corner now. I feel compelled to go into your family's history here, and I feel as though you know so much about your family's history, and if you could take us back to Dr. Smith and the Waterhouse-Smith connection, and those times when they were the doctors and the medical expertise on the island during those days. Could you just start briefly and tell us about how they chose to come here, and then what they experienced with living in Hawaii during the mid-1800s, right?
Yes, and the overthrow of Queen Liliuokalani.
That was part of your family, W.O.
Yes.
Smith. Part of he was one of the PG people, right?
He was Thurston Dole, and James Smith. They were the 3 boys that grew up together on Kauai.
I see.
And they had to do something. England wanted Hawaii. Russia wanted Hawaii. Of course, Japan almost got Hawaii.
Right.
But, oh yeah, they were avid. This, we're going to be part of the USA.
Do you know, did they feel as though they had to remove the queen in order for that to happen?
Oh, you have to read the book. It all in detail.
I see.
It's all in detail.
Sure, I understand. So they were involved in politics, but primarily the work of the Smith family was in healing people, and they were part of the times when, I mean, if you're before 1850, that's whaling time, right? So, and the whaling ships landed in Koloa.
Oh, with a lot of other people that came from all over the world, and they had no use for anybody but just to get drunk, be with the girls. No, it was
a whole culture that was coming here, yeah.
That came here before the missionaries came, 40 long years.
And they brought disease, and they brought a culture with them that helped to destroy the native culture, the Hawaiian culture, right?
If it weren't for the missionaries that learned to speak pure Hawaiian and do the things they did for them, they built schools, taught them, educated them.
Right. But the whaling people, that culture that was to take, they were here to take things.
Absolutely.
And they were trading with the native people for food and water, those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
But their main mission was to take and to... but the whaling industry sort of died out, and then the sugar plantation community came in, and Koloa is the first.
That's right. And you know why? Because the school, the missionaries needed jobs to support. They weren't being supported totally by the missions in...
from New England.
From New England.
Right.
And so they started sugar, and that's how they made a lot of their money.
Do you know any stories about the very beginning of sugar? Why sugar? How did they know that sugar would work?
Oh, because the kids there's so much to that story.
I'm sure.
You got to read about it, yeah. But sugar was the first, that helped them buy stuff and support them.
So, but to grow sugar, you need labor. And so the labor, the different immigrations that came here, the Chinese and Japanese and Filipino cultures, they came here, they were brought here, and they brought a whole nother world that your family had to interact with. And what did they do about the language barriers and things with the immigrant people who were working on the plantation?
They had to learn English. They were the first generations born here that we went to school with.
Right.
Yeah. And
did you speak Pidgin at that time?
oh, pure Pidgin, pure Pidgin.
Is there such thing as pure Pidgin?
Oh, you stay go and I stay come.
Yeah.
No. It was a whole new world. And the plantations, housing was free. Their medical was free. Everything was free for the workers.
I see. So that's what really made them able to make families and start their life here rather than just finish their contract and go back to where they came from.
Well, the Filipinos made a lot of money, sent it back to the Philippines, the Filipinos. But the Japanese were different. They wanted to stay here, and they got off the plantations and had stores and all kinds of stuff.
And their value was education and putting their kids through school. And
those kids just studied. And when I was going to school, that's all they did.
Right. Yeah. And did you have friends of other cultures? Did you have friends that were Filipino and friends that were Japanese?
All our friends.
Yeah.
We loved our friends in high school.
Yeah.
We loved our friends in 8th grade. Yeah.
And did you play sports and athletics with them and everybody?
No. Well, we were song leaders. That was our sport.
Oh.
My sister and I were song leaders. For 3 years. Yeah. You didn't get elected the first year, but.
And what kind of songs did you lead?
Oh my gosh! On Waimea. On
Waimea.
All after the college songs, we just put Waimea in its place.
Oh, yeah. I remember that going to school in Michigan, and we always would take the Michigan State fight song and put all the words in there. Right?
Is that where you grew up?
In Michigan, yes.
Oh, my God.
So, but all this culture coming together, did you know that you were a cultural melting pot? Were you aware of that?
No, I just knew everybody loved everybody. I just thought, this is life. If I go to the mainland, I'm going to get in with all kinds of people.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
So did you experience kind of a prejudice or
no.
These people stay over there, that kind of thing? You never experienced that?
No, except they knew. They couldn't date us. That was, you just didn't date at that in 91 years ago,
Yeah, culturally different norms were there.
They had just come to Hawaii and they worked in the fields and they were maids and did things, so
my first church here in Hanapipi, United Church of Christ, many of those people were Japanese Nisei, people of your generation. And some of them told me stories of being domestic help. And they told me stories of how there was a prejudice against them during World War II from the American FBI,
because they didn't know whether they were on the island ready to bomb us off the face of the earth.
So there was a fear thing that happened.
Oh, absolutely.
And so everything was always being sorted out. Do you remember your parents having particular ideas about the immigration that was happening or the success of the plantation based on the different...
Well, No, I don't know how they felt, but all I know is that somebody did kill my dad's dog. We found it up in the reservoir.
Tell me
after.
that story.
Well, he had a dog. In fact, my first playhouse was the doghouse, Oscar.
Oh.
And he followed Daddy everywhere, Scotch Terrier. And the next day after Pearl Harbor, Oscar was found dead up in the reservoir. But that's the only thing that we were aware of. Otherwise, they were still our friends.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, a lot of times those stories are just not retold. I remember with interviewing people from my church, it's just, we don't need to go there. We don't need to tell that story again.
And somebody could have run over him.
Sure.
You know, but that's, no. Otherwise, there was no feeling. But how sad we were that happened.
You know, Bobbie, I'm really impressed by how much you and your family love this island.
Oh my goodness.
And you seem to always, when you leave this island, you have this magnetic thing where you want to come back.
Well, you know, if I saw anybody in an aloha shirt, I'd say, are you from Hawaii?
Yeah, right.
Oh my
right.
God, I was so homesick.
Right, yeah.
Especially in New York.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, what was it like your first winter? Was that special time?
Oh, it was special. Oh my God. Well, kids took me home on weekends too, the day students. And so I went to Poughkeepsie and yeah, I saw a lot of wonderful things, their homes and how they lived.
What do you feel is, I mean, you know, we're talking about your family historically with what they've given to Kauai. What do you think is the greatest thing that your family has given to the island? What about, you know, the Smith Waterhouse clan? There's so many of you.
The missionaries, if you read their stories, what they built schools to get the kids that weren't smart in real school to learn how to fix an engine and all of that. I mean, that's what they did for the kids of Hawaiian ancestry.
They were very concerned about the community as a whole thing, and saw where it was weak, building a school and making it be sort of like a trade school or a technical school.
Trade school is what they built. It's all in the book. Beautiful buildings that they built to educate the kids.
What would you like to see your family, how would you like to see your family continue to tell your story?
I hope my kids and grandkids and great-grandkids continue to do good like their ancestors did.
There we go.
Yep.
There we go. In other words,
yes.
a heritage.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well.
And it's amazing because there were 9 kids in my 10, and my grandfather was the oldest, and half of everybody had a college education.
Wow.
Except one. And that one invented the stop-go light in Pasadena.
Oh my gosh.
The stop-go light.
Yeah.
He invented that. Yeah. It went from Pasadena all the way to Ventura.
Wow.
The stop-go light. Yeah, it's all written up in the books, yeah.
I like this idea of giving back and, you know, continually finding out how you can serve and give back.
Well, many of them went on to missionary schools, to I forget what you call those schools.
Seminary.
Seminary schools back east, and they all ended up in Japan, especially in Africa. They spent years in Africa, and they'd come home every 5 years for a year, and then anyway.
So it's still growing.
Gave their lives.
It's still growing. The whole thing about giving is growing. I feel like we could plug the book.
And India, too. They went to India, gave a lot of lives in India.
Is that information in the book? Would you mind holding this book?
Sure.
And let's read the title of this, 100 Years of Healing Was that a difficult title? No, would be my guess.
3 generations of doctors in this book.
3 generations of doctors. I don't know of any family that has that legacy. And essentially, this is a genealogy of Smith Waterhouse.
It's absolutely, it's a genealogy.
Yeah. And why would somebody want to read this? What's important here?
Well, if you like Hawaiian history and you want to know about Hawaiian history, this is one of the best books.
One of the best books.
It has everything.
And it's from the family's point of view, right?
My daughter put it all together. Some of the pictures are mine. And we had a wonderful girl, Evelyn Cook, that wrote it. A dear, dear, dear friend. She put it all together.
I know Evelyn.
Evelyn Cook. Oh, they were very dear to our family.
She's gone now. It's so amazing to have your family be create such a story and then be able to put it into a book and share the book. I mean, for me, I wish every family could do that.
Well, you know why, though? Letters in trunks. They found all these wonderful, wonderful letters. They wrote back and forth almost every day to their family from here.
Right.
And Dr. Smith went back one time to where he was born. And Millicent never left Kauai. She stayed, died here, never went home. I think there were like 11 kids in her family, and she never went back. She was a true wife, a missionary girl that loved the Hawaiians. In fact, she was the first one that allowed their kids to play with Hawaiians.
I see.
The first missionaries that came here 20 years before that did not allow them because they were very immoral in those days. They didn't wear clothes. They slept with each other. It was just a whole new... And, of course, the white men that came over off the boats and the ships went along with all this. Nobody cared about the Hawaiians until the missionaries came.
So 2 cultures kind of coming together and then trying to decide how to create a new society based on what was valuable. I want to read it now, that part over again, because there were several of those stories where Hawaiian people went to the mainland and they were raised and they learned, and then they came back to Hawaii and helped their people along the way.
Well, they knew the difference between how to treat people.
All right.
I hope.
And one more itty bitty question: what do you aspire to in these autumn of your lifetimes?
I am so happy to be home with my children, grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, and maybe I'll live long enough to see the great-great-great-grandchildren.
This would be a Smith tradition and a Waterhouse tradition, and the great-great-great-great.
Right.
Well, it's very nice to interview you, Bobbie. I think you're an amazing person, and your story is just barely being told here, but I think we're getting to where we should probably bring it to a close.
Thank you so much. You have been absolutely a joy to help me get through this.
Thanks for saying that.
Take me out of the cannery, take me out of the stench. Janacas and jitneys and cans galore, pineapples strewn right and left on the floor. Oh, please take me out of the cannery, I'm slowly going insane. Oh, they ought to outlaw pineapples from this dark